But I think true competitive advantage on technology front is more about your rate of innovation than it is the degree to which you're slowing others down.
Your patents are open source.
Yeah. So if somebody comes and makes a better electric car than Tesla, and it's so much better than ours that we can't sell our cars and we go bankrupt, I still think that's a good thing for the world.
Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. So first up today, we have Aptera starting a petition to push Congress to try to get Tesla superchargers to be the EV standard. This would be great, however, it feels like too little too late. And just real quick, if you're not familiar, this is Aptera, and they are supposed to be taking this new futuristic looking vehicle into production later this year. Aptera mentioned the things like a better user experience and a lower cost for Tesla superchargers. However, we know that this really isn't going to play out based on merit alone. It really would be tough to force those other automakers to use Tesla standard, as they already have vehicles on the market and many more preparing for production. Elon himself has said, "We will be adding the rest of the industry connectors as an option to superchargers in the US. We're trying as best as possible to do the right thing for the advancement of electrification, even if that diminishes our competitive advantage." This isn't exactly the tone a company would have if it really was pushing hard to have its connector be the standard. Now, I am going to sign this, and it will be linked below if you're interested, but to everybody that is now arguing this could never happen because of the way Tesla's handling the patent situation, which I'll explain briefly in a moment, let's not forget what Elon has already said.
Because the overarching goal of Tesla is to accelerate the advent of sustainable energy. And so if we created a patent portfolio that discouraged other companies from making electric cars, that would be inconsistent with our mission. So we open sourced all the patents.
When I was first starting out developing technology, I got lots of patents and I thought this was a good thing. And then I sort of discovered that a patent was really like buying a lottery ticket to a lawsuit. I was like, I'd rather not buy those tickets.
The real way I think you actually achieve intellectual property protection is by innovating fast enough. If your rate of innovation is high, then you don't need to worry about protecting the IP because other companies will be copying something that you did years ago.
In the case of Tesla, I thought, well, would Tesla ever sue some other car company if they were using our patents to try to make them stop making electric cars? We would never do such a thing. So why pretend that we would?
And you're not just recognizing that internally as a de facto position. You're saying to the world, here, have them, go for it. And that's not just because you think we're never going to sue them. It's presumably because you think there is some business advantage to it.
No,
right?
I really don't.
No?
No. I mean, if there is, let me know what it is. I'm not sure.
The counter argument then has to do with some of the wording in Tesla's actual open sourcing of its patents. Now, this is directly from Tesla, and a party has to be acting in good faith to use Tesla's open source patents. Where most people get lost is what good faith means. Asserted, helped others assert, or had a financial stake in any assertion of any patent or other intellectual property right against Tesla, or any patent right against a third party for its use of technologies relating to EVs or related equipment. The loose English translation is that any company that would use one of Tesla's open source patents can then no longer enforce its own EV patents against Tesla or any other EV company, effectively giving up the power of any of its own intellectual property in order to use Tesla's. Now, I'm not a lawyer, however, one has agreed with me in the blue and actually takes it a step further, saying if Tesla were to then copy a different company's source code line for line, that company would be required to forfeit the protection provided by the pledge in order to enforce its rights. And who knows how this would play out in court. If you know anything about the patent system, it's pretty terrible from some aspects, and there's plenty of fraud, and it's not always working how it was intended to work, because with everything where there's money involved, you'll have bad actors. That said, I think Tesla actually goes through the process of getting these patents, even though they then open source them, from a defensive standpoint. So if somebody were to try to sue them for patent infringement, they could say, no, hey, like this was our idea first. So not that they're trying to stifle competition, but rather trying to defend themselves. Drive Tesla Canada kind kind of has me confused with this one a little bit. They say they got some new information about the Magic Dock, saying instead of the connector docking to the inside of the supercharger, the new Magic Dock, or this CCS adapter presumably, will attach to the top of the opening in the pedestal. They mentioned they didn't know how Tesla planned to keep people from walking away with this CCS adapter, but they then say this particular design means Tesla won't be installing Magic Docks on the V4 superchargers as we see it above. My assumption is that they think this is going to be the design like the Mega Charger, where there's actually no opening in the center. That's why you couldn't have the Magic Dock docking on the inside. So all around, just a kind of confusing article. If I'm missing something, please correct me below. A user on Reddit shared this text that they are saying is coming from Tesla, asking people for information about their vehicle so that Tesla can then provide them a free estimate for their car, even if they're not looking to trade it in, just to know what it's worth. Just be careful with this one to avoid any scammy situations. Tesla should really have some of this data already in its system. Either way though, if you're interested in that, you can always Google Tesla's local number in your area and call that number, or talk to Tesla directly through the app. Just be careful with the text. Check this out. In the first half of this year, Tesla accounted for 21.6% of total US luxury sales, up 13% from the first half in 2021. Thus, Tesla's overall market share of the luxury segment is actually increasing. And here's a trend we have to watch and keep in mind moving forward. Premium brand sales for the first half of this year outpaced the broader auto industry's 21% decline, only being down itself 11%. Thus, automakers have prioritized production of more profitable luxury vehicles, notably SUVs and crossovers, in the wake of the severe chip shortage that's expected to stretch into next year. This is a theme I don't think gets talked about nearly enough. Over the next 10 years, these legacy automakers that are going to struggle flipping things over and learning how to make a profit on EVs are almost going to be forced to make these higher, more luxury end vehicles, kind of neglecting some of the lower range. Some automakers will try to force vehicles into that sub $35,000 category. The question then becomes, can they sell it, and how long can they sell it for before they lose too much money? Remember, Ford is currently losing money on the Mach-E, a vehicle that starts around $45,000. In case you ever see this Tesla service alert talking about the sandwich sensor being disconnected, some people in the comments explain that OCS is Occupant Classification System, and this sensor is basically in the seats that takes readings if anything is on that seat, like a bag or a person. Apparently, the sensor itself is like a sandwich of materials. If you see this headline today, just know that yes, we already talked about this a week or two ago. It's just today people are confirming the filing via the WARN Act, where Tesla actually notified the employees they were being let go. You may recall when Tesla first started building cars at Giga Berlin, they made around 2,000 that they were not allowed to sell to customers. They would use for crash tests, driving around the factory, and things like that. Fast forward to today, and Tesla is requesting permission to sell some of that batch to end customers. In a letter, Tesla is saying some pre-production units that are considered good enough to be used without major restrictions and could be sold to end users. The letter was dated June 11th, and I'm sure some bears out there will say Tesla is struggling so much it's now trying to sell some pre-production vehicles. I really just think this is a matter of Tesla not wanting to waste those vehicles. Rather than scrap them or do whatever, some customers would probably be happy to take delivery. Once again, remember, Giga Berlin is currently shut down for upgrades. One of the main reasons the EV market in China is leading the world by such a large margin is because some of the government policies. Not the least of which, its dual credit policy, which for last year, 2021, just some interesting info, Tesla earned 1.4 million credits, second to only BYD, and these credits are valued around 2.93 billion RMB, which is equivalent to about $435 million. These credits are indeed tradable, as you would imagine, and the dual nature is you have some positive and some negative, so some companies will keep the positive to offset some of its negative, as there are some stipulations that you can't really sell certain products until you get your negatives to zero at least, depending on certain fuel standards. There was actually a pretty good study done on the topic, but the point is this policy should remain in effect until 2023, which of course is a good thing for continued strong EV growth there, and then hopefully the rest of the world will feel the urge to need to keep up. Gail Alfar shared on Twitter that in certain locations during off-peak hours, which are after 8 p.m. and before 11 a.m., Tesla will be offering up to 50% off the Supercharger rates. This was the accompanying email, so just be on the lookout, FYI. We get a simple yet impactful statement from Pierre Ferragut. Now, yes, he's a noted Tesla bull with a price target around $15.80. Either way, he says he doubts traditional automakers can develop the kinds of EV systems that Tesla has over its 19-year history. Even if auto manufacturers around the world are moving to electric in a massive and forceful way, it remains unlikely they will be decently competitive against Tesla. It'll just probably take the rest of the world another 5 or 10 years to really figure that out. We got some interesting data from a new AAA study on future EV adoption, but before we get into the data, we need to find the methodology. After digging a bit, this survey was conducted February 18th through the 20th this year. It's a probability-based panel designed to represent US household population overall, and is supposed to cover 97% of the US population. A total of 1,051 interviews were completed among US adults age 18 or older, so not a huge data set. If you could somehow get 1,000 people to be representative of 97% of the US population, I'm not sure how you would. 25% of Americans are likely to buy an EV, not a hybrid, for their next auto purchase. That number is 30% for millennials. The number one reason cited should come as no surprise: the higher gas prices as of late. To all of my fellow Polestar fans out there, how about a virtual fist bump, as they're reporting a 125% sales increase for the first half of 2022. Polestar delivered around 21,200 cars in the first 6 months of this year, more than doubling deliveries from 9,510 in the same period last year. Perhaps more importantly, Polestar reaffirmed its full year target of delivering 50,000 cars. Remember later this year, sometime around October, to look out for the Polestar 3, a luxury SUV that will be for the US market, which of course is a huge deal for this company, and Polestar still has the goal of selling 290,000 cars in 2025. I'm not invested in Polestar, I just like this company. Arrival will be reorganizing its business to try to remain viable through the end of next year with the cash it has on hand. Arrival is still focused on initial production of its Arrival van in Q3 of this year, and said this reorganization will allow it to deliver business priorities until late next year, primarily utilizing the $500 million cash on hand. This could, however, potentially impact up to 30% of employees globally. CATL is reporting that it's nearing production of lithium manganese iron phosphate batteries within this year. It was never clarified if that means like within 2022 or within the next 12 months. They're saying this LMFP battery will have energy density 15 to 20% higher than regular LFP iron phosphate, and that there's little difference in the material cost. This is according to local media, but even if it was coming from CATL, for me with battery promises, it's always I'll believe it when I see it in the real world. The batteries have passed some initial testing, and now they're being sent to automakers for sample testing. If you saw the video yesterday, you heard about this news between Walmart and Canoo. However, there are some new revelations about a clause in the agreement. The agreement says Canoo will not enter into any agreement for any services involving the design, manufacture, consult, advice, lease, or sale of EVs to, or issue any equity-linked, or debt securities of any type, or enter into any agreement for the purpose of transferring control of the company to Amazon or its subsidiaries or affiliates. This is Walmart clearly taking aim directly at Amazon, trying to get a leg up. Oh, and one other small footnote. Canoo has granted Walmart a warranty to buy up to 61.2 million shares over 10 years at an exercise price of $2.15. So Walmart would own more than 20% of Canoo if it exercises all of the shares allotted. After polling the public, it looks like NHTSA is not going to allow automakers to make custom audible noises when their EVs are traveling below that 19 mph threshold. NHTSA said the great majority of comments, those submitted by organizations and people who are blind or have a low vision, did not favor the proposal to allow to have an unlimited number of different pedestrian alert sounds, which I totally understand. The CPI report came out today, and in a nutshell, it was not great. Definitely came in hotter than expectations. Month over month, we're looking at a 1.3% rise for the month of June. If you annualize that, that's a 15.6% annual inflation rate. The expectation for this figure was around 1.1%. Shifting to the year-over-year data, looking at the blue line, which is all items, what you should really be looking at, came in at 9.1%, so we're over 9%, and the expectations, once again, were around 8.8 to 8.9 for this figure. I personally think the government just tries to distract people with this core figure as something to point at, saying, hey, it's not so bad when you take out food and energy. Why would you take out food and energy if you're trying to figure out rising prices and how consumers are actually impacted? These are two huge items. And don't let it be lost on you that this is a 9.1% annual increase coming from a 5.5% base last June. So what does this actually mean? Well, in the short term, it definitely increases the likelihood that we get a 75 basis point hike at the next meeting, and perhaps another one after that, and maybe even beyond. From July 13th to the 24th, there will be a few Tesla vehicles on display ahead of the first deliveries to the Singapore market later this year in August. And who wouldn't want to end today's video looking at a recent image of the roof of Giga Austin, looking at the pretty significant solar panel installation progress. That'll do it for today. Please like the video if you did. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.